Hello and welcome to the Jexit podcast. I'm your host Riley, a former Jehovah's Witness who left the religion in 2019. And today I'm joined by my lovely wife, Mrs. Jexit.
Hello.
Also known as Marcia. Thanks for joining me today again,
Of course.
babe.
Of
It's
course.
always great to have you on the podcast.
Yes, I'm very excited about these topics.
Yeah. So today we are going to be speaking about some of the strangest, and that's putting it politely, some of the strangest things that Jehovah's Witnesses believe, and getting the perspective of someone who's never been a Jehovah's Witness and just, speaking to you and seeing what you think about it and just how crazy you think these beliefs are.
Yeah. And to preface, I don't know what these are up front. You have obviously told me a lot of their beliefs, and a lot of them are shocking and things. So there might be a few that you've thrown in there that I do not know about yet. But these will be honest reactions and how I see them from an outside point of view looking inward. Yeah,
that'd be great. Okay, so let's start off with an easier one that I know that you're familiar with, and one that most people know JWs for, and that is the prohibition. Full disclosure, before we go any further, the two of us have been drinking, and in fact, we still are drinking. So please forgive any verbal slip-ups or any tongue-tiedness. Okay, so first one, blood transfusion.
Yes.
The prohibition against blood transfusion.
Mm-hmm.
So this is based on the idea that blood represents life, and Jehovah is the life giver, and he instructs all humans to respect life. So the idea that the life of something is held in its blood. So as a respect of the life of that thing, you should actually have respect for its blood. And that's one of the reasons why Jehovah's Witnesses prohibit blood transfusions. Also, there is a scripture, I believe it's in the book of Acts, where it says to keep abstaining from blood. Now, obviously, they didn't have blood transfusions back in those days, so the scripture was speaking about eating blood. But the JW counter to that argument is that, and this is one that I was raised on, one that I've even said when I've been out on the ministry speaking to people, is that if you were in an accident and you were unconscious and you were unable to eat, you would be fed intravenously.
Right.
So there's no difference between taking sustenance intravenously into your veins and eating it. So if you can be fed intravenously when you would normally eat food by consuming it through your mouth, then it also works the other way around.
My God.
That consuming food through your mouth is pretty much the same thing as being fed it intravenously. So that's the reason. That's one of the arguments that Jehovah's Witnesses have against blood transfusions, and that's one of the arguments they use to say that it's no different to actually eating blood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But again, it's like, I feel like it's picking and choosing what you are doing, because if you don't feel like you should take blood, then why are you ingesting blood? I remember asking you when we very first started dating, because I've been a vegan for many, 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 many years. So I haven't consumed animal blood or anything in years before we even met each other. But I remember asking you, well, how does that apply to the things that you eat and your steak and everything? Not from a vegan judgmental side of it, but from what you were saying and with the scripture that you were quoting me. Why is it okay for you to eat meat? And you're like, oh, well, we would only go to butchers who would totally drain the meat. And I was like, wait a minute. You mean to tell me every single time you ate meat, you went to an ethical butcher who drained the meat? That's bullshit. Like, to me, I'm calling bullshit on that. Like, not every single Jehovah's Witness, one, has the resources to do that, and two, cares enough about it to where that would be like, oh yes, we have to make sure everything's drained, the blood is drained from the meat that we eat. So that was my first problem with that. My second problem with that was that, so at the time, when we had talked about it afterward, but at the time I said, so you mean to tell me if one of your kids needed a blood transfusion? I believe one of them almost did at some point, but didn't have to or something.
Oh, they were very sick, but they didn't actually need a blood transfusion.
So you mean to tell me that because of the Jehovah's Witness rules or what it says in the Bible, that you would have let them die instead of helping them? And you were like, yes. And that really that blew my mind, that as a parent, that's the stance you would take, that whatever the church deciphered the Bible as at that time, it doesn't say that you cannot accept blood transfusions, but because in their words and how they viewed the scripture at that time, that's what it meant. That was okay for you to let your parent die, your spouse die, to let yourself die, because you would not accept blood. And you can't tell me that any of the governing body, when that rule was still in place, if they were on their deathbed, they would have said, nope, no blood. It just really, there's so many gray areas with that. It really just did not sit well with me that people would literally let their children or their loved ones die just because of how the governing body interpreted that in the Bible.
Yeah.
Not because of what it specifically said in the Bible, how it was interpreted by the governing body.
Yeah.
And that people, and not only that, then the follow-up to that is when they were like, oh, new light, new light. You can't see the hand motion I'm doing there. But that, okay, well, maybe it's all right if you accept platelets, or right? It's like platelets or something now.
Okay, so there was a change. I can't remember what year it was, but they're basically saying you can't have primary blood components, but you can have secondary blood fractions. So,
but where does it say that in the Bible?
It doesn't.
Does it say, okay, no, I'm sorry, you can't ingest blood, but you can ingest platelets of blood? That makes no sense.
Platelets is actually one of the primary blood components. So it's white cells, red cells, platelets, and plasma. Those are still prohibited.
Yeah.
But there are smaller fractions of that make up blood. Other things like certain proteins and stuff that they say it's a conscience matter. It's up to your conscience if you want to have those or not. But those 4 primary blood components are still off the table.
So all those people who let their loved ones die based on what the governing body said before that, and now that there's this new light or whatever, how awful that must be for them that they let their loved ones die, or, someone they know died. You had someone that you know that had a blood transfusion.
Many people.
Or that were offered a blood transfusion, said no.
Many people.
Yeah. So I would be so angry if I were in the religion and that happened, and all of a sudden there's new light because they decided whatever happened that, they needed to change the rule or whatever. That it really just blows my mind that at that point it's playing with people's lives.
Yeah.
Like, you're not just saying, go knocking door to door. If you don't, oh, you're a bad Jehovah's Witness. I mean, you're literally playing with people's lives. That it's just unacceptable. And I can't imagine what those people had to go through.
Yeah. I mean, it's a similar situation with organ transplants.
Yeah.
That's a new light that has gone backwards and forwards several times. There have been times where organ transplants were prohibited and you could get disfellowshipped for having one. And then there were times where it was okay. And then there are times where it went back to not being okay. And to me, all of these things are just evidence that this is just a man-made religion.
Yeah.
It's the opinions of the people who are at the top at any given time.
Yeah. Because
I mean, even if you were to do like a graph of the changes just with the blood transfusions, the new light on the blood transfusions, if you were to do a graph of when those things changed, I'm pretty certain it would coincide quite closely with changes of the leadership.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Because when I see, and again, this is an outside person looking in who's never been in religion, when I see the governing body making changes, it's not that one of them has like a dream and Jesus comes to them or whatever. Jehovah comes to them. There's new light, brother. Mm-hmm. It's really like someone has an idea. They all sit around the table and discuss the pros and cons of it and how it's going to benefit the organization.
Exactly.
Like there's never like a new light where they're all gathered and praying to Jehovah and Jehovah comes down and blesses them and speaks to them about new light, brothers. Oh, we now allow blood transfusions, brothers. And then they're all like, oh, new light.
Yeah.
It's like, I honestly think that one of them is like one of them has to be like a marketing expert and just like, oh, how new light. Oh, yes. Just like with everything that they do when they change.
New light is basically just the brand that they put on.
It's just a new marketing
technique. A new idea that they have.
It's a new marketing technique.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
On how to get people, one, in the religion or how to get them not to really leave the religion.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. That's coming from marketer myself. Yeah.
100%. Another thing that Jehovah's Witnesses are extremely famous or rather infamous for, and that is shunning.
Okay, shunning. Yeah,
all right, now, I know you're familiar with shunning and the concept of it. Just to give some overview and a background. So basically, if a Jehovah's Witness, quote unquote, strays from the path, commits a gross sin or a very serious sin that they are not repentant for, and how repentance is judged is a whole nother rabbit hole.
Right.
But basically, if you've committed a sin, a serious sin that you're not repentant for, you get disfellowshipped.
Right.
You can only get disfellowshipped if you've been baptized.
Yeah.
Right. So someone who's been raised in a religion but has never been baptized, they would never ever get disfellowshipped. That doesn't mean they couldn't be shunned, but they would never get disfellowshipped. So the shunning wouldn't be mandated by the religion's rules.
Yeah.
All right. So a baptized person commits a serious sin, then deemed to be not repentant, so they're disfellowshipped and shunned. The ridiculous thing that is the thing that I really want to highlight and speak about is the fact that somebody who has never been baptized could be a worse person or living a worse life than somebody who is baptized but committed a quote unquote serious sin. And they could still, it's not guaranteed, but they could still have full contact with their friends and family.
Yeah.
Right? But a person who had a consensual sexual relationship with their partner is completely cast out and cut off.
Yeah.
Wally from the JW Thoughts channel done a really good video on this topic a while back, probably over a year ago. He has a relative who's in prison, who's a literal serial killer.
Oh, jeez.
But his family still speak to that individual, but they don't speak to him.
Yeah.
Because he's disfellowshipped.
Yeah. It's kind of like your mom.
Yeah.
She won't speak to you anymore. Yeah. But
I have another close relative who doesn't live by, I mean, not trying to sound judgmental, but by all accounts doesn't live an upstanding life.
Yeah. Yeah.
But my mum still speaks to them, but refuses to speak to me.
Yeah.
Because, I was, because I'm baptized and I was disfellowshipped, but this person, although they were baptized, they were never disfellowshipped.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. So make it make sense. What do you think about it?
Here's what I liken sometimes shunning to. It's like torture.
Mm-hmm.
Think about like when they torture hostages. And this is a very non-violent form of torture, but like when they're stuck in a closet and they're playing the same song over and over and over and over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
Until they're finally like, okay, I'll confess. I'll tell you what you want to know.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
like it's like a slow form of torture. Like we're taking everything away from you. We're not talking to you. We're taking everything away from you. We're taking your family. We're taking your routines. We're taking everything away from you until you decide that you want to come back.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a slow form of torture. From the beginning, when we were talking about this, I, not knowing anything about the Jehovah's Witness religion before we really started dating, is that just growing up Christian, right? Like, love your fellow man, love your fellow, like, you're supposed to show people love, especially when they're going through hard times, especially when, they might need it the most. And that was another thing that just really shocked me, that, if you've done something, who knows what it could be, like whether you touched your girlfriend's boob or something, I don't know, and then you get shunned, or whatever it is, or you're talking bad against the religion, or you have questions, or you question them too much, or whatever it is. It didn't make sense to me that your whole family, and not you specific, you as like a collective, that your whole family, everybody everybody that you were friends with for years, everybody that's loved you for years, just cuts you off based on a mistake. Because we all make mistakes. All of us do. But to take that to the next level, and instead of being sympathetic or even empathetic to what you're going through, or what your needs are, or what, is troubling you, or, hey, maybe this person needs help, and I'm not talking like serious criminals, but, for whatever little reason people get disfellowship for in the religion, maybe this person needs help. What if we love him and help guide him? To me, that's showing a loving religion.
Yeah.
To me, that's showing people who really care for you, and there's no ulterior motives. There's no conditions. To me, that is what the Christian faith is.
Yeah.
So to have just the opposite of that, and I know Jehovah's Witnesses aren't the only one, but to have the complete opposite of that, where you completely shun them, it's like a form of mental torture. It's like mental abuse, because they know what they're doing by shunning.
Yeah.
They're making that person who's being shunned think, we're the only people you have. We're everything to you. Because we've not let you have worldly friends. We've not let you be out in the real world. You go out there, it's not going to be the same. And they cut all that off from you. That's just sadistic in my mind. That is so sadistic that people would treat other people like that. Like you are just the worst of the worst.
Yeah.
And not only that, just the amount of people who can't cope with that loss and are alone, who end up committing suicide, or who end up having serious mental issues, or who end up on the lowest of low, or homeless, or whatever it is, because of the shunning, instead of being in a loving, caring organization who was like, you know what, you messed up. We're going to disfellowship you, but let's work together to see what's wrong. Let's work together instead of, whatever, they do. Instead of making you feel like you're the problem.
Yeah. Yeah. See, everything you've just said, well, practically everything you just said, was said to me by a really close friend of mine shortly after I was disfellowshipped. We were talking, and I was explaining to her the rules of the religion and why I'm being shunned and blah, blah, blah. And she could not wrap her head around it. She was like, what on earth kind of religion is this?
Yeah.
This isn't loving.
Yeah.
And I remember distinctly defending the religion and defending the decision to disfellowship me to her.
Yeah.
Literally defending it.
Yeah.
Because I agreed with it. I thought it was right, and she must have been so confused.
Yeah. Well, that's all you knew. That's all you knew. That's all you've seen your whole life, because you weren't allowed to have worldly friends and know really how the outside world works. You thought that was normal.
Yeah.
You thought that's what love was.
I mean, shunning is basically a really aggressive form of the silent treatment.
Yeah.
And we all know that the silent treatment is manipulation.
Yeah.
It's a form of coercive control.
Yeah.
It's manipulation.
Yeah.
But this is like 10x that.
Yeah.
You know.
It really is. But I feel like that's how the whole religion is set up. The whole religion's set up like as a manipulation.
Yeah.
You know, again, by telling you, you know, well, sorry, not telling you, but suggesting that you don't, you know, speak to worldly people, you don't, you know, and setting you up even before you get disfellowshipped to think that if you're out in the real world, that you will not survive, that it's chaos.
Yeah.
It's a whole bunch of drug addicts and hookers and, or whatever, you know, or venereal diseases, or, you know, like, they set you up to where you're so frightened that when you do get disfellowshipped, you're like, well, this is my life now. Like, you know, you don't know any better because you were never taught any better. The religion taught you this way.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so it's easy. I think it's very sad, but it's easy for someone who, you know, is disfellowshipped to come out of the religion and just fall into the deepest, darkest holes, which be again, from an outsider looking in, like a lot of your friends that have left their religion, you know, a lot of people we know that have left the religion, you know, that's where they are. That's where they are until they find the support groups of the XJW or something to let them know it was all wrong. That's not how the world is. That's not what shunning is. That's not what love is. But people still think that that's what love is.
Yeah.
And so they end up finding toxic relationships thinking, you know, oh, well, this is what love is. Love is supposed to be this, or love, you know, but it's not. You know, it took you a while to learn that.
Yeah. 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 100%. Yeah. It's really, really manipulative.
Yeah.
And the way I liken it is to imagine your best friend pushing you into a lake and you don't know how to swim. And then that same person who's pushed you into the lake, they stretch out their hand to help you out.
But instead of stretching out their hand to help you out, it's there, but they're like, say please first.
So exactly.
Say please first.
Yeah.
And if they don't say please, you keep pulling your hand back.
Yeah, exactly.
And just watching them drown. And oh, well, they didn't say please, so they're just going to go ahead and drown. Yeah.
Yeah. So in that moment, you have a choice whether you want to capitulate to their manipulations and escape the lake, or learn how to swim there and then.
Yeah. And most people are so desperate at that point of their lives, they reach out for the hand.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, it takes so much strength to not reach out for the hand and just go, you know what? Let me drown.
Or let me teach myself how to swim.
Yeah, exactly.
While I'm drowning.
Yeah. my morbid brain was going to, I'm dying, and then I'm coming back a new person. But yeah, it's exactly that. Yeah.
So on a scale of 1 to 10, how crazy do you think this practice of the religion is?
On shunning?
Yeah.
Oh gosh, that would definitely have to be up there as a 10, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's definitely the worst, if not one. I mean, as far as probably things we're going to talk about today, and not, you know, anything more deep, and, you know, as far as people in the religion and what they're doing and stuff. But yeah, because that's not love. To raise a child, to love them unconditionally, but just kidding, there's a condition. And that's if you're not in the same religion as I am, then I don't know you. I don't own you. You're not my blood. That's devastating. That is devastating to people. It's almost easier if that person dies than to just tell them, I'm not talking to you anymore.
Yeah.
Because that's just devastating, knowing that that's a choice that they have. And I know that they're caught up in the same web of lies and same mental, you know, manipulation as everybody else. But especially like being a parent, or, you know, that you can just say, you know what? No, I'm not talking to you as of today. And then that's it. And I'm sure that there's hurt on both sides. I'm sure that, you know, from their perspective, they see hurt too, and but there has to be a better way. There just has to be a better way.
Yeah. I mean, I remember hearing my mum speaking about one of my siblings who left the religion long before I did, saying that she hopes that in the future, Jehovah takes her memory away of that child
Oh,
so that she won't feel the hurt
oh,
that, her child left the religion. She would
yeah.
rather forget that they ever existed.
Oh,
So I know that she will say a similar thing about me as well.
oh,
She would rather forget that I ever existed, that, for her to have all memory of me completely erased than to remember me, but know that I wasn't a Jehovah's Witness anymore.
that is horrible. But where in the Bible does it say that? Where in the Bible does it say you're not supposed to talk to people who don't believe in the same things that you do?
There's a scripture that...
And I'm not being facetious. Like, I really
I
genuinely,
know.
like, what is it?
Okay, so it's based on the understanding of a scripture in the book of Matthew. So it's Matthew chapter 18, verse 15 to 20... No, verse 15 to 17. It says, "If your brother commits a sin, go and reveal his fault between you and him alone. If he listens to you, you have gained your brother. But if he doesn't listen to you, take along with you one or two more, so that on the testimony of 2 or 3 witnesses, every matter may be established. If he does not listen to them, speak to the congregation. If he does not listen even to the congregation, let him be to you just as a man of the nations and as a tax collector." So tax collectors were people who were hated. Yeah. So basically you're saying that if somebody sins continuously and refuses to listen to counsel, then you basically expel them from the congregation and you view them as somebody of the nations and as in the same way that you would view a tax collector. There's also another scripture, I can't remember where that is, but it says about not even giving a greeting to such a person. So it's there. Now, I'm not saying that the scriptures say that that's what you should do, but that's how they interpret the scriptures.
Right.
As saying as what you should do.
Right.
And that's what their basis for the disfellowshipping rule is.
But sometimes do they even give you the option to make 1, 2, 3 mistakes, or is it just this?
Sometimes, yeah.
Okay.
Sometimes. Yeah. But yeah, that's where it comes from. But here's the thing. This is why I have a problem with viewing the Bible as an authority, as a moral authority.
Right.
Because it's all subjective.
Yeah.
Anytime, I would argue that the organization interprets these scriptures incorrectly. But regardless of that, whether you believe they interpret them correctly or incorrectly, every single time a person defers to the Bible as a moral authority, they're imposing their own subjective view onto the scriptures.
Right.
And it's all subjective.
Yeah. Everything in life subjective.
You could make the Bible say whatever you want it to say.
Yeah.
The Bible in and of itself doesn't actually say anything.
Yeah.
Anytime you say this is what the Bible says, it's not what the Bible says, it's what you say the Bible says.
Right. It's what you interpret the Bible as saying.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that goes for any religion, Jehovah's Witnesses or otherwise, or whether you view a religion to be a cult or otherwise.
Yeah.
That's part of the process of, deferring to couple of thousand-year-old text.
Yeah.
That was written by people of a different time, a different language, a different culture.
And using it to suit their purpose at the time.
Exactly.
Just like people are using it to serve their purpose now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why it inherently to me doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. And that alone is just like anything else. Like when you listen to a song, like if we listen to a sad song, how you interpret that sad song is going to be different than how I interpret the sad song.
Exactly.
How you hear that sad song is going to bring up different feelings than I hear that sad song. It's going to bring up different feelings. The book or the Bible or any book is going to be the same way.
Exactly.
Just because you have authority and now, you're the governing body or whatever, you know, their rule is law. It's not. It's not.
Yeah, that's the thing. So that's why, to me, it's a fundamental mistake to take the Bible and use it as authority for anybody to live their lives by.
Yeah.
Especially when you have a group of people imposing their ideas about it upon anyone else. That makes it even more egregious in my opinion.
Because you're going to find people who have the same beliefs as you, and that's how cults are formed, or that's how religions are formed, right? So when whoever the guy was who started this religion, he was like, oh, I think the Bible means this and this and this. And then you had a few people that were like, you know what? It does mean that and that and that. You know, whereas the Catholics were like, you know what? I think the Bible means this and this and this. And they were like, you know what? You're right. The Bible does. It's all about, you want to find your group. You want to find a belonging. You want to find somewhere to fit in. You want to believe that what you believe is right. And it's really hard for people to step outside of themselves, step outside of their ego and be like, you know what? This might not be right. And not ego in a bad way. But it takes a lot for someone to say, you know what? I was wrong. I was wrong.
Yeah.
And that's the problem we've seen over and over again with the governing body. They'll never say, you know what, we were wrong, our bad. It's always like, oh, you know what, there's kind of new light here. Yeah. You can accept blood. Sorry, everybody had to die.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Exactly. Okay, so on to the next one. The anointed.
Okay.
All right. So in mainstream Christianity, most Christian denominations believe that when you die, if you're a good person during your life, you'll go to heaven. And if you're a bad person, you'll go to hell. That's what broadly speaking, that's what most Christian religions believe. Jehovah's Witnesses don't believe that at all. They don't believe in hell. They don't believe that hell is a real place. But they also don't believe that all good people go to heaven when they die. They believe that some people will go to heaven, but it's a very limited number. And that number is extremely specific. It's 144,000.
Right.
Only 144,000 people will end up going to heaven when they die. Anyone else who was a good person, and by good, they mean a Jehovah's Witness. Any other good person who dies, they remain dead until the end times after Armageddon, when there's a resurrection. And then at some point after Armageddon, they will be resurrected back to life on earth. And they will live forever on the earth. Very, very different from mainstream Christianity.
Yeah.
But that is what Jehovah's Witnesses believe.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, I should say that the explanations that I'm giving about JW doctrine on these points is according to what it was when I was a Jehovah's Witness.
Right.
Since I've left, there has been new light and changes about many different things, and I'm not 100% up to speed with what all of those changes are.
Yeah.
So everything that I'm saying may not necessarily be the current understanding as the religion teaches, but I'm telling you what it was when I was a Jehovah's Witness.
Yeah. Which is weird because I'm just totally gonna okay. So if they're the ones appointed by Jehovah, why, and Jehovah's all knowing and he knows past, present, future, whatever, why would he mess around with people to be like, hey, you know what? Tell people not to accept blood, and then it result, there's new light, and then he's like, I was just messing with you guys. Do you look at accept blood? I was just playing. You know what I mean? What if they're all knowing? And I'm guessing, right? Your religion believes that God can see past, present, and future, right?
Not in the same way that other Christian religions do.
Okay.
They believe that Jehovah is all powerful, so he's omnipotent. They believe, but they don't believe that he's omnipresent. They don't believe that Jehovah is everywhere all at once. They believe that he can see everywhere all at once if he wants to, but he's not necessarily physically everywhere all at once. And they believe that Jehovah is kind of omniscient. He he has the ability to know everything, but he doesn't always choose to use it.
Interesting. Okay.
That's what they believe. So Jehovah doesn't immediately know the future. And this is a bone of contention between atheists and mainstream Christians. It's one of the biggest ones. Is that if God knows everything, then it means that he's evil because he created Adam and Eve knowing they were going to sin. He created the angel who became Lucifer, or the devil, knowing that he was going to be, because God can see the future. God knows everything that's going to happen. Jehovah's Witnesses don't believe that.
So do they believe that Jehovah can make mistakes then?
No.
Because essentially that's what they're saying with the new light. Oops, we kind of...
They get around that with some circular reasoning. But on the point of God being omniscient, they don't believe that God instantly, immediately knows the future. They believe that he has the power to know the future, but he chooses to use it at certain times. It's like, you know how to read. There's a book over there on the bookshelf. You have the ability to know what is in that book, but you don't instantly automatically know it. You have to first get up and pick up the book and open it and read it. They view God's knowledge of the future in the same way. God has the ability to know the future, but he has to look, and he doesn't always choose to.
Interesting. Why doesn't he always choose to?
Out of a sense of fairness and justice. So it wouldn't have been fair for him to test Adam and Eve if he knew from the beginning whether or not they would fail.
Right.
That's one of the reasons.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so the 144,000. I've never understood how someone knows and how someone gets to be one of the 144,000. So can I just like walk up and be like, you know what? I had a dream last night that I was one of the 144,000. Guys, I'm the 144,000. They're like, boom, you're in. Like, how does it work?
Basically, yeah. So there's this thing that if somebody professes to be one of the anointed, you're not supposed to question them or doubt them openly. Of course, everybody can have doubts or whatever in their mind, but it's between that person and Jehovah.
But didn't you say...
So basically, and that is actually what is happening in the religion. Yeah. There was a certain point where I grew up in the religion in the 80s, right? And I remember when the organization still published yearbooks, one of the things that everybody was keenly anticipating wherever a new yearbook came out was how many anointed members there were left. Because we viewed that as kind of like a countdown.
Oh.
Because each year when they do the memorial and the drinking of the bread, the drinking of the wine and the eating of the bread, which only the anointed do, not all Jehovah's Witnesses do that. Right. The organization keeps a count of how many people did that. And for decades, the number was gradually going down and down and down and down and down. And because we believed that number wouldn't completely get to zero before Armageddon came, we viewed that as sort of like a countdown to see how close we were getting to the end. But at some point in the not too distant past, only like in the last 10 years or so, that number just started trending upwards instead of going down.
Yeah.
Because more and more people were coming forward saying that they were part of the anointing.
Yeah. Yeah, because I imagine with all the Jehovah's Witnesses in the world, especially back then, there would have to be more than 144,000. Like, how do you...
Well, this is the thing. This is the interesting thing. This is why that number came to be part of this doctrine in the first place, is because when the religion first started, the leaders never ever anticipated that there would be more than 144 Bible students, as they were called then, in the world.
Right.
They never ever anticipated that.
Yeah.
It was only, I mean, I'm talking right back to the time of Charles Taze Russell, who was the founder. It was only during the time of Rutherford, the second president of the organization, when the religion had really, really grown and expanded beyond anybody's imagination, that they realized, hold on a second, there's not going to be enough spaces.
Yeah.
If we believe that 144,000 people are going to go to heaven,
what's going to happen to the rest of them?
What's going to happen to everybody else?
Yeah.
We're growing beyond that number now.
So they just made the rest of it up.
What they did was created a second tier of
Lord.
Jehovah's Witness called the other sheep. They looked into some passages in the scriptures and they interpreted these scriptures to mean that there were going to be two types of salvation. One for the 144,000 who would go to heaven, and two for everyone else just live forever in a paradise earth. And that's how that doctrine came about, because the religion was growing to the point where there were more than 144,000 people.
But where in the Bible does it say anything about 144,000 people?
Okay, so there are some scriptures in, I think it's in Psalms, where it speaks about the 12 tribes of Israel. And out of each tribe, there will be 12,000 members who would be sealed. So 12 times 12,000 is 144,000. So this is the thing. This is the thing that the Jehovah's Witness religion does that I'm not sure that any other Christian denomination does. They take random scriptures from anywhere in the Bible and put them together to form this elaborate tapestry of doctrine.
Yeah.
When there's no real coherent link between these different scriptures.
Yeah. Exactly. And then I feel like they use that as like kind of like a mind fuck, you know, to where if you're reading it, you have to, even if you don't get it, you almost have to be like, yeah, that totally makes sense. Because if you were like, I don't get it, then they'd be like, oh, well, you're not a good enough Jehovah's Witness. You just don't understand. You know, I feel like some things that they do is just like twisting and turning and trying to like, you know, fit it. That's insane. I mean, even just like, you know, bringing in a second tier, you know, of people, you know, because the religion grew too much. I mean, it's insane. And why? I don't know if we're going to talk about this, but then after, you know, the anointed or whatever are in heaven, like, what do?
They will rule over the earth as kings and priests.
144,000 of them. Like what? Doing what? Like ruling how?
I don't know.
Just being like, you're bad, you're good, or...
No, because eventually the earth will be filled with only Jehovah's Witnesses and everybody's just going to be good and perfect and...
But people aren't good and perfect. Not even Jehovah's Witnesses aren't good and perfect.
No, but they believe that in the new world after Armageddon.
The new world.
We're gonna get to that. we're gonna get to that. But they believe that eventually all human beings will be perfect after they've proved their loyalty to Jehovah, and you know their reward for that will be everlasting life. So Jehovah's Witnesses believe that this 144,000 will be like a government, and the people on the earth will be their subjects. Yeah, which is also one of the reasons why Jehovah's Witnesses don't vote, because they feel that they are citizens of that government that's to come in the future. Well, the government is already in place now, but it's in a spiritual sense rather than in a literal sense.
Yeah.
But Jehovah's Witnesses see themselves as being temporary or alien residents. In any country where they live, they don't see themselves fully as being citizens of that country. They're really citizens of God's government. But they're just living as immigrants in whatever country they're living in.
Yeah. But even immigrants, I feel, want to make the best out of their time and out of the country they live in. You know, so to totally shut yourself off from what's happening in the world and what's happening in the place that you live, you know, why wouldn't you, again, what's a better way to show a loving, caring religion than to do things like that, than to vote or go help people without expecting anything in return?
Because they think that this world is temporary. So what's the point? It's like putting a Band-Aid on a bullet wound. It's
yeah, but
it's pointless.
Even if you don't believe in the religion, even if you're an atheist, you can have that same view, right? If there's no afterlife, then what's the point? The point is that you want to be a good person. You want to show your fellow man, your fellow woman, you know, your fellow people that, you know what, there is good in the world.
Yeah.
You know,
I completely agree with you. And you made a good point there where you said you want to be a good person. But in the mind of a Jehovah's Witness, a good person is a Jehovah's Witness. That the two things are inextricably linked. There's no such thing as being a good person without being a Jehovah's Witness. You know?
So Jehovah's Witnesses don't think that you can be a good person if you're not a Jehovah's Witness?
No. Essentially,
really?
no.
Okay.
No. Essentially, no. I mean, they will never tell you that.
Yeah.
They may not even consciously think that in a conscious way, but everything that the religion teaches says that. I mean, you could have a neighbor that you get on really well with, and they're the nicest person to, you know, live next to. They shovel your driveway when it snows, you know, they pick up your shopping for you. But in your heart and mind, that person is going to die at Armageddon simply because they are not a Jehovah's Witness. And that's not unfair.
Yeah.
That's not unjust or unfair.
But to the outside looking in, it is like, because you're already judging somebody because they're not a Jehovah's Witness. Like, you don't even give them time to reveal their true character and who they are and how good they are as a person, because just because they're not a Jehovah's Witness, you already assume
exactly
you're not a good person.
Exactly.
But you're doing the exact opposite of what the Bible says you should do, you know, judging and, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, Jehovah's Witnesses aren't going to have time to preach to every single person on the face of the earth until, quote unquote, Armageddon happens. You know, how is that fair? If Jehovah's Witnesses, and you believe what Jehovah's Witnesses are saying, how is that fair to the people who die and don't get resurrected because they were never a Jehovah's Witness? Because no one ever preached that. I never ran into a Jehovah's Witness my whole entire life. What if Armageddon happened before we met? Yeah. And I'd just be dead forever.
Yeah.
I consider myself a good person, but I was never given that chance to prove myself or to be converted or whatever. But a serial killer who died, 50 years ago or had the death penalty, he'll be resurrected because he gets another chance. How is that fair?
Yeah. Actually, let's move on to the resurrection. That was going to be the next thing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Okay. So obviously you're already familiar with that. So the resurrection, as I said earlier, most Christian religions believe that when a person dies, their soul either goes to heaven if they were good, or it goes to hell if they were bad. But Jehovah's Witnesses, I think the technical term is annihilationist. Jehovah's Witnesses are annihilationists. They believe that when you're dead, you're dead. You're in a state of non-existence. Right? Except for the fact that Jehovah knows everything about you. So you're in his memory like a backup. You're saved in his memory like a backup. Right? So after Armageddon, if you died before Armageddon, having never had the chance to become a Jehovah's Witness, Jehovah will use that backup, that memory that he knows of you as a person, and recreate you.
Okay.
And that's what resurrection is, basically.
So if I were to die before I ever got preached to as a Jehovah's Witness, if I were to die, I'd be resurrected just based on what Jehovah remembered me to be, even though I was never a Jehovah's Witness. Yeah. Even though I died at Armageddon.
Not if you died at
That's what I'm talking about.
No, if you died before Armageddon.
No. I'm talking about if I died at Armageddon before.
Then you're finished.
Exactly. That's to me, I think this is the first time that you were telling me this and I go, that's dumb.
Yeah.
Because
yeah.
It made no sense how all the good people out there who
it's just a matter of timing.
Right.
Yeah, which you have no control over.
Yeah, all the Jehovah's Witnesses in the whole wide world, if they work every single day of their lives for 12 hours a day, not every single person's ever going to be preached to and have the option to join a Jehovah's Witness. There's always going to be people left out. So again, taking me as an example, I never got preached to. I never came to my door. I never shut the door in anybody's face. I never was like, what the hell? So if Armageddon would have happened before we met, and I never got preached to, I'm screwed. But somebody else who died before Armageddon.
I mean, over the years, I've asked many elders that exact same question. And I vaguely remember it being addressed in a watchtower. And if memory serves, it said something like, We don't know exactly what's going to happen in a situation like that, but the only thing that we can trust is that whatever Jehovah does will be fair and just, which isn't really an answer.
Yeah, no, it's not. Because I don't feel like, and again, like you told me the story on how there was, going back to 144,000 even, there was a pedophile in prison, right?
Yeah.
And while he was in prison, he became a Jehovah's Witness. And
he was a serial killer.
Oh, he's a serial killer.
Yeah, the Yorkshire Ripper.
Yeah, and then while he was in prison, he decided, oh, you know what, I'm a Jehovah's Witness. Not only am I a Jehovah's Witness, I'm one of the 144,000.
Yeah.
So he gets a renewed lease on, well, in the Jehovah's Witness system. He gets a renewed lease, but someone like me, who's never really done a bad thing in their life, not the bad kind of bad, but you know, like that, just, how is that fair? How is that just? How is that a loving God? How, like, what was the purpose then? What was the purpose of my life if I was never even remotely close to coming in contact with Jehovah's Witness who would be able to preach to me?
This is the thing. So, Joe, when it comes to their view of sin, Jehovah's Witnesses they're very different in everything compared to other Christians. But Jehovah's Witnesses believe that the wages of sin is death, right? So once you die, that's another reason why they don't believe in hell.
Yeah.
Because once a person dies, they've paid the price for every single sin they committed in their life. So there's no point in torturing them further.
Yeah.
Which is what mainstream Christianity really believes, that, you know, eternal conscious torment.
Yeah.
Jehovah's Witnesses don't believe that because they say that death is the final price that you pay. So once somebody dies, they're dead, you know? So if someone died before Armageddon, they get a resurrection because it's like a clean slate. They've settled their bill. So it's only fair that they should get a second chance. But if somebody is killed at Armageddon, well, then that's a judgment. You know, that's not like them just paying for their sin. That's like a judgment. That's Jehovah executing judgment on them and executing them.
But is it possible that a really, really good person who is better than any Jehovah's Witness,
that's an oxymoron. That's a contradiction.
But just a really, really good person in general who's never, you know, sinning was, you know, far and few between. They don't deserve all that. Would they be able to stay alive at Armageddon, or they would still die? Only Jehovah's Witnesses survive Armageddon.
Okay, it has changed slightly. There has been new light. There has been new light on it, and I think the current understanding is we just don't know. We just don't know what's going to happen, which is the answer that I got many, many times during my time in the religion. We just don't know. We just don't know. We can put all of these hypothetical situations and scenarios, but at the end of the day, we just don't know. The only thing we know for sure is that however Jehovah handles it will be fair.
Yeah. So what about...
But having said that, my understanding, according to what I was taught my whole life as a Jehovah's Witness, the only people who will survive Armageddon are Jehovah's Witnesses.
Yeah.
Which is why everybody panics and is so grieved when you leave the religion, because they think that means you're going to die.
Yeah.
Whether you get kicked out because you did something wrong, or whether, you know, or if you just stopped going to the meeting and just faded away.
So what about in the new world or whatever on Earth? Like, how does it start? Do you have to just rebuild everything from scratch? Do you have to start growing your own food? Do you have to start?
Basically, if the illustrations in the publications or anything to go by, there's countless of images of people just like construction work, basically building houses, building infrastructure. Just,
well, what if like Ted Bundy or like Jack the Ripper is like, you know what? Fuck this. I still want to be the way I was before in the other life. And they start killing people. And then you start having chaos again. And
that's
start having people like Trump, you know, who decides, you know, well, I'm going to try to be a dictator. Like, what happens to all those people? Because I'm guessing you still have like your mind and your previous thoughts from when you
still have free will.
Yeah. So what is stopping from those people from doing a democracy or doing like a coup or something? Like, you know,
Nothing really, according to the religion's ideas, nothing. That was going to be the next thing I wanted to talk about, was the millennial reign.
Oh, what's that?
Okay, so this is the sequence of events as it was taught to me when I was Jehovah's Witness. There have been some changes, but Armageddon's going to come, right? Actually, no, let's take a step back a little bit. The Great Tribulation. The Great Tribulation is, according to JW doctrine, is going to be a period of time where there's going to be untold misery and suffering, the likes of which the world has never seen before. It's going to be great tribulation. And it's all going to be kicked off by the major world governments and or the United Nations declaring world peace.
Okay. Wait, so they're going to declare world peace, and then all this stuff's going to happen?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Basically, they're going to turn on false religion. They're going to wipe religion off the map, completely destroy all religions except Jehovah's Witnesses. They're going to be the last man standing. The governments are going to declare world peace, and then the scripture says, and as soon as it is that they say peace and security, that's when sudden destruction will instantly be upon them.
From who?
Jehovah.
So that's when Armageddon's going to start happening?
Yeah.
So why would... I briefly remember you saying something about this before.
No, sorry. I made a mistake. I'm getting into a couple of things conflated. So what kickstarts Armageddon is the governments specifically attacking Jehovah's Witnesses when they realize that they're the last religion left. That's what's going to kickstart Armageddon. But the Great Tribulation will start when they declare that there's peace and security. It's going to be like a major announcement. It's going to be either major governments that are part of the United Nations or the United Nations itself. That's a bit murky. That's not so clear. But there's going to be a major announcement that we've finally achieved global peace and security. And then there's going to be a great tribulation.
Yeah. So why are Jehovah's Witnesses the last ones?
Because they're the only true religion that is backed by Almighty God. All the other religions are false.
The United Nations don't know that. They don't believe that Jehovah's Witnesses, if they did, they'd be a Jehovah's Witness.
Yeah, of course, they don't believe that. But because Jehovah will be protecting his people when all the other religions get destroyed, Jehovah's Witnesses won't. They might get affected on an individual level. Some Jehovah's Witnesses might get caught up in the general persecution of religion that's happening. But as an entity, as a group, they're going to survive when all the other religions will be destroyed.
But why would the United Nations care so much about Jehovah's Witnesses?
That's the thing that I believe is crazy that I really want to get your opinion on.
Because
how crazy do you think it is that Jehovah's Witnesses believe that the governments of this world are going to collectively decide to ban religion on a global scale? Right.
Even where Jehovah's Witnesses aren't a thing, even in countries where Jehovah's Witnesses aren't even there.
Mm-hmm.
Like, why?
I mean, there are countries where Jehovah's Witnesses are banned.
Yeah.
But does it seem remotely likely or even possible to you that the majority of the governments of this world are going to collectively decide to ban organized religion across the planet?
No. Because one, there's no way they're going to be able to do that. They can go and shut down churches. Mm-hmm. Like they can do Henry VIII style and just go freaking church to church and whatever, tear it down. Right. I mean, I'm saying that nicely. They didn't do that. But, they could just go shut them down or whatever. People are still going to worship in their own way.
Yeah.
They're still going to find a basement in their friend's house. Mm-hmm. You're not going to be able to the governments can say, you know what? We're not going to have religion anymore. Catholics don't exist. Jews don't exist. Jehovah's Witnesses don't exist. That's not realistically how it could ever work. Mm. Banning religion, how would you even do that?
Mm. First of all, you'd have to define religion.
Exactly. And you'd have to
define
go
what religion,
again.
because there are religions that don't believe in God.
Yeah.
There are non-theistic religions.
And you have to go to every person, again, like Henry VIII times, and be like, do you pledge your loyalty to the United Nations? You know, like, and if they're like, yes, okay, you get a pass. Do you pledge your religion? No. Okay, they get killed. Like, it is impossible in the amount of religious, non-religious, atheist world that we live in, that you could just say, okay, there's a ban on our religion, and then just have it disappear. It won't work like that, because people aren't just going to stop believing what they believed in their whole lives. It's just not going to happen, whether you're Jehovah's Witness or whether you're another religion. It's not going to happen. So even if the governments all collectively got together and decided, you know what, religion is just going to go away. Go away to where? Like, where? What are you going to do to make religion go away? People are still going to have their beliefs. You can't get into everybody's head and give them a lobotomy and say, like, you know what, religion doesn't exist anymore. You know, there's always going to be some people worshiping something or believing in something that is greater than themselves.
Yeah.
Some people aren't, some people are. You can't make that go away by saying it doesn't exist anymore.
The craziest thing about this doctrine to me, I mean, what you said is 100% true and 100% valid. But the craziest thing about it to me is that religion isn't just about individual people on an individual level. There are governments where there isn't a separation between church and state.
Yeah.
There are theocracies. There are governments in this world that are literal theocracy.
Yeah.
How is a government like that going to decide to ban religion?
Yeah. Yeah. Especially
when the rules of the religion
on,
exactly, when the rules of the religion are one and the same as the rules and laws of the country.
Yeah. Like Islam or It'd be impossible. We'd be at war again. Like everybody would be at war with each other. Because they'd be trying to think that, no, we're the true religion. No, we're the true religion.
Yeah.
You can't say, I mean, it would be, for the United Nations and for governments, it would be a death sentence for everybody. They would be killing their own people. Because everyone would be in a fight to show if they were the true religion. They deserve to be the ones that were, if it got that far.
Yeah.
But that to think that you matter enough as a religion that the United Nations and all the world governments will be focusing on you, you know, when the world's coming to an end, that's insane.
Yeah. There's been some new light on this just recently in the past 48 hours, in fact. Yeah. I'm not 100% sure. I'm reluctant to speak to it because I'm not 100% sure as to what it is or how this doctrine has been updated. But yeah, there has been some new light about what shape the Great Tribulation will take, when it will start, what it's going to be like, blah, blah,
yeah. Just like that video you showed me a couple years ago about the people in their basement.
Yeah, the bunker videos.
Yeah. They're like, the Jehovah's Witnesses are in the basement, and the you know, whatever military come down and try to get them out. Like what? You're like, you're not that important. The military is going to seek you out. You have no guns. You're no threat.
Yeah.
They don't care what you think. All they care is if you're a threat to them, and you're not.
Yeah.
You worship however you want to worship. Like,
I mean, I think that's one of the biggest things, one of the biggest realities to come to terms with when you leave the religion and you start waking up, is how insignificant Jehovah's Witnesses as a group are to anyone in the outside world, let alone governments. Completely insignificant. Because as a Jehovah's Witness, you're kind of taught in a backhanded way that every single thing that happens in the world is about you, ultimately, about the group that you're a part of. I grew up believing that. I remember when I was a kid, I think it was either in the late 80s or the early 90s. I can't remember exactly when it changed, but the law changed in the UK I think in the US, you call them Miranda rights, the rights that you get read when you're arrested.
Yeah.
In the UK, the wording of those rights was changed. Previously, it was you have the right to remain silent, you have the right to legal counsel, but they changed it to say that you do not have to say anything, but you may harm your defense when you're questioned if you mention something that
that's used later in court. Yeah.
It was changed.
Yeah.
When that law changed, I was convinced that it was about us. I was convinced that it was Satan laying the groundwork for our future prosecutions when we start being persecuted. So that when you're arrested, you're going to harm your defense if you remain silent.
Yeah.
I was convinced that's what it was all about.
Yeah.
There was no one telling me anything different.
Wow.
100% convinced.
Yeah.
So you think that everything that major that happens in the world is ultimately about you.
Yeah.
And then when you leave the religion, you start waking up, you realize nobody cares about Jehovah's Witnesses. No. And that's if they've even heard of them in the first place.
Exactly. But that just goes back to the whole, like, it using everything because it fits in your narrative. There's always going to be something. There's always going to be changes. There's always going to be wars. There's always going to be, catastrophes. There's always going to be something.
Yeah.
Right. And because of the religion that you grew up in, and because of how you were taught to think about the world, you're always going to make those things fit your narrative, the Jehovah's Witness narrative. Always, no matter what happens. Just like I remember you telling me, when you would get in a fight with your ex and she'd be like, Jehovah punish you or something. What did she say? She said something
God
like,
punish you,
yeah, God punish you. And then right after that, like, you stub your toe and you'd be like, oh, that's it. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
it's mentally so ingrained in you that no matter what happens, most of the stuff that the bad stuff happens is that you're fitting that into your narrative, into what the religions taught you.
Yeah.
Right. And that goes for a lot of religions too. Cause I remember growing up Christian, how when things would happen, I would think that was a consequence of, XYZ or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's sad because it is such a huge mental manipulation. And I think Jehovah's Witnesses, are unfortunately one of the worst religions for that. Not only do they not respect you as individuals, they place you in a group, like as a number. They don't want you to think for yourself. They don't want you to do anything for yourself, but they manipulate you and mindfuck you enough to where you don't have your own opinion. Everything that happens, you relate it back to the religion. You try to connect it with some verse that somebody said, and in last week's meeting, somebody said this, and then something happened, and you're connected. It's like, it's so exhausting. I can't imagine living that. Not only just like going to church on a Sunday, like a good Christian would, but like 3 days a week or 4 days a week, whenever you had to do it.
Yeah.
Like it takes up so much mental space that it has to be exhausting. Exhausting. Because really, when do you know when anything really means anything? What's real and what's not? So, and I think that's why a lot of people struggle when they get out of the religion, not knowing who they are. Like you, like, what am I? Like, I've never really had to think a lot for myself. Well, lucky for you, you were very intelligent anyway, but not, thinking about the outside world and what it means and what it does mean to vote or what it does mean to make a difference in the world or go, help a charity or whatever, not to think about those things in your religion, but then come out and realize there's a whole new world open to you and a whole new set of possibilities, and trying to find out who you really are instead of a collective group or a number and a religion. I mean, that's terrifying. So that's why I'm sure a lot of people end up going back or creating alternate realities for themselves, or they just can't do it because it has to be so hard.
Yeah. Or they keep the exact same way of thinking, but just
apply it to other things.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They just slot something else into the space that was left by the religion.
Exactly.
But then they still function and think in exactly the
yeah,
same way.
Yeah. Because they don't know any better. Yeah.
It's sad.
It is very sad.
So that brings us on to the millennial reign.
Yeah.
Right? So the peace cries happened.
Uh-huh.
Then there's the Great Tribulation.
Uh-huh.
Then there's the War of Armageddon.
Uh-huh.
At the War of Armageddon, Jehovah destroys 99.9% of the human population. The only people who are left, according to what I was raised to believe, are Jehovah's Witnesses. Right? Then there's the resurrection. Right? By the way, the resurrection doesn't happen all at once. It's like a gradual thing that carries out over a period of time.
Like births, or
how do you mean?
Like 9 months, every 9 months someone gives birth. Like, will people still be able to get pregnant? Or
I don't know. I don't know what I was never taught what the schedule would be, but it wouldn't happen all at once. That's all I know. Okay, so it's the new world. It's post Armageddon. Now, at Armageddon, Jehovah destroys all wickedness except for Satan and his demons. He doesn't destroy them. He puts them in like a prison called an abyss. And his sentence is 1,000 years. So for the next 1,000 years from the end of Armageddon, Satan is locked up in this abyss.
Wait, where is Satan before this?
Satan's just somewhere around the earth causing trouble.
Okay.
With his bros. With his squad.
This gang of demons.
Yeah. So Satan and his demons are in the abyss for 1,000 years. During that, and that 1,000-year period is called the Millennial Reign. It's the period where Jesus is king of the earth and he's ruling the earth with the 144,000 king priests. They're ruling over the earth. They're presiding over the project of turning the earth into a paradise.
So then why does he keep Satan and his bros alive?
I'm coming to that.
Okay.
So gradually over this 1,000-year period, human beings are gradually becoming more and more perfect, or actually becoming less and less imperfect. So every day when you get up, you notice that you're a little bit healthier. You have a little bit more vitality. You look a little bit younger. Yeah. Your body's getting fitter and stronger gradually every single day. You're not sick. You're not perfect yet, but that's the direction you're heading in. And people are being resurrected gradually. Jehovah's Witnesses are studying the Bible with these resurrected people, right? Teaching them about Jehovah, former Jehovah's Witnesses who died decades ago, getting them up to speed on the new light that's happened since then.
Sure.
Teaching them about the new things that have been, revealed in the religion. People who died centuries ago, teaching them about blah, blah, blah,
right,
blah.
Right.
Teaching them how to be a Jehovah's Witness in this new world.
Would Van Gogh be there and teach me how to be an artist?
Probably.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. So all the resurrected ones are being taught how to be citizens of this new world that they've woken up and found themselves in. Now, at the end of that 1,000-year period, Satan's sentence is up. Him and his demons get let loose. And they are allowed to test humanity one final time.
Oh my God.
And they're going to instigate a rebellion. And some people will actually follow him. So remember earlier you spoke about, what about Jack the Ripper or serial killers who get resurrected?
Yeah.
What are they going to be like? What if they don't want to fall in line?
Yeah.
Some of them will be part of this rebellion.
But wait. If you spend 1,000 years becoming perfect, then why would anyone fall in line with Satan?
1,000? Well, that's a good question.
And not only that, so you mean to tell me that the whole entire time you were on earth, you need to prove yourself to God, and you're in eternity with him, with paradise on earth for another 1,000 years and proving yourself to him. He's going to be like, I got one more test for you.
Basically,
like, that's a fucking dick move.
Yeah.
That's a dick move.
It is, yeah.
You've spent centuries proving yourself to me and proving your worth, but I have one more challenge for you. Like, when is it enough? When is it just going to be, why did he even have to keep Satan anyway?
Yeah.
Why are Satan and his bros why do they even have to come back? Why don't you just banish them?
He could have just destroyed them at Armageddon and had done with it.
What's the point?
Yeah.
And if it's to prove your loyalty, then just keep the Jehovah's Witnesses. Why did you have to revive Jack the Ripper or resurrect Jack the Ripper and freaking Ted Bundy and whatever?
Yeah.
Like, what purpose does that serve in the long run? Giving them another chance? Okay, so you're giving Jack the Ripper and Ted Bundy another chance, but you're making these people who have been perfect to you for centuries go through the agony and the stress of now all of a sudden you're bringing sin and everything back onto the earth. Like, what kind of reward is that for you living the perfect life and having eternity on earth now?
I don't make the rules.
You haven't thought that far ahead. You're just like, well, I'll just be in paradise on earth. Like, I'm fishing and but building my house.
That's, I mean, this is something that started occurring to me when I was waking up. It's like the new system really isn't going to be that much different from this one. It's just going to be prettier.
Exactly.
You're still going to have bad people around doing bad things because everyone's still going to have free will. They're not going to forced to be Jehovah's Witnesses.
Right. It's not like you're wiping their memory and wiping the slate clean. Everyone gets to start over. I mean, are you still married? If you were in like a horrible marriage, are you still married to the person you're married to?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
So, like, if you like had a horrible marriage and your marriage was abusive or something, and then you're in the new world, but you both were Jehovah's Witnesses, and you're in the new world, you still have to be with that. Are they still an abuser in the new world?
So, okay, I'm going to put my Jehovah's Witness hat on for a second to answer your question. I'm going to answer that question as if I'm still a Jehovah's Witness.
Okay.
I'm going to endeavor to answer in the way that I would have when I was still in the religion.
Okay.
Okay. So somebody who was an abuser is obviously a wicked-hearted person, so they wouldn't have survived Armageddon in the first place.
But they were Jehovah's Witness, though.
Yeah, but even not all Jehovah's Witnesses would end up making it.
Oh. So even if Armageddon happens, you're a Jehovah's Witness. If you're a bad Jehovah's Witness, then you wouldn't.
Then you will die with everyone else.
Oh, okay, okay. I thought if you were a Jehovah's Witness, you automatically came back no matter what.
No.
Okay.
No. Yeah. So that's what my answer to that question would have.
Okay.
Yeah, but yeah, as I was saying, it occurred to me that you're still going to have bad people doing bad things, even in the paradise.
Yeah.
You know, people who don't want to conform their life to what Jehovah says, and they're going to get to be alive and be around for 1,000 years until Jehovah does Armageddon 2.0.
Yeah, because if you still have your same mindset, your same, kids, they like to rebel. Like, you're not.
Yeah.
It's not like you're starting over with wiping someone's memory, or you're not starting over just taking out all the bad parts of somebody, If you're that same person going into a new system, and from what you told me about current Jehovah's Witnesses, a lot of them aren't that good anyway.
Yeah.
Then are you still going to be sleeping with your next door neighbor's wife? Like, the new system? Like, how does that just... Yeah, it makes no sense why. I feel like that's just an extended form of punishment. Like, why would you wait 1,000 years? And why would you keep making people preach? Like, haven't they proved themselves enough to you in the old world? Like, why do you still have to continue on and have them preach a word to people who are resurrected to tell them about, God? Shouldn't the proof be in the pudding? Like, you died.
Yeah.
Like, you died. Everything was black for a long time, and now you're here. Like, that's proof enough that there's a God. What are you preaching to them about? Like, what more proof do you need? Like, you were dead, now you're alive. Like, are you good? Yeah, I'm good. Okay, cool. Let's go. Like, what do you have to preach to them about in the new system? Like, what is there? What?
teaching them how to be a Jehovah's Witness.
But why? They're already resurrected. Why do they need to be a Jehovah's Witness? Just teach them to be a good person and be a perfect person. What?
But being a good person is being a Jehovah's Witness.
Right, but why do you have to have the label Jehovah's Witness in a new world? Why can't you just say, do you believe in God? Yep. All right, you're good. Give them a fucking stamp and move on to the next one. Like, you know, have your weekly barbecues.
Yeah.
Get together, make sure everyone's still good. Like, what are you still preaching them about? Like, to me, if I had passed before and I was resurrected in the new system, and I'm like, wow, this is what God created. This isn't anything like it. I'd be sold right there. Like, you wouldn't have to sell me anything at that point. You're right. I'm in. Whatever you're selling, I'm buying.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, because this is proof enough to me.
Because I was dead and now I'm not.
Yeah. That, oh my gosh, I get this second chance. I don't want to mess it up.
Yeah. And
why is it your responsibility now as a new human on new earth, new earth, why is that your job? Why can't, if I step out of line or I'm bad or whatever, well, God's going to send you back to where you were then, so don't do it. Like, what is the point of all of it at that point? You know, I don't understand the whole preaching.
There's been some interesting new light on that in the past couple of years. So remember I was saying that I was thinking to myself, but then it doesn't make sense because you're going to have this 1,000-year period where not everyone is going to fall in line and be a good little Jehovah's Witness. So you're still going to have crime, still going to have violence. You're still going to have, it's not going to be a perfect world. It will be just like it is now, where you're going to have some good people and some bad people. Well, an update on that was said by Stephen Lett at a convention. I think it was, or maybe it was an annual meeting. I can't remember. But he was saying that if maybe after 100 years or so of being taught the right way to live and the moral way to live in this new world, somebody demonstrates that they don't really want it, then there's no reason to believe that they're going to be around for the rest of the 1,000-year period. Yeah. Jehovah could just get rid of them.
Yeah, exactly.
But here's the thing. He only applied that example specifically to gay people. So basically, a gay person who died before Armageddon and then gets resurrected into the new system, they're going to have to be re-educated to understand that being gay isn't acceptable to Jehovah. But if after 100 years or so, they're still not sold on the idea, then there's no reason to believe that they're going to be around for the rest of the 1,000-year reign.
Wow.
But presumably he would say the same thing about other types of non-conformists. That's me trying to be diplomatic in the way that I word it.
Exactly. So why do you need to keep Satan and his bros around for 1,000 years? Why can't you just weed those people out over the next 1,000 years? Again, it's it just seems like torture that you would like.
Do you know, here's my honest opinion about what is driving all of this. It's because the religion has painted itself into a corner through trying to be so different to mainstream Christianity that they've had to build excuses upon doctrine and doctrine upon excuses to explain the corner that they've painted themselves into, that they rigidly don't want to let go of. And that is this idea that there's going to be a paradise earth rather than everyone going to heaven. I think that's what it is. Because they've put their foot down to such a stubborn degree to say, no, there's going to be a paradise earth. They have to come up with ways to justify that. And that's what all of these ridiculous scenarios, and that's what all of this is to prop up this main doctrine of the paradise earth, which isn't in the Bible.
Exactly.
It was wild to me when I started waking up and when I read the Bible for the first time without the lens of a JW doctrine, without the lens of any doctrine, just read it as a book. It was wild to me how many things we believed that I would have died saying to you were based on the Bible that were nowhere to be found in the scripture.
Oh my gosh.
Nowhere to be found.
Yeah.
And the Paradise Earth was one of them. There is no script. There's not a single syllable of the Bible
Really
that speaks about a Paradise Earth.
Really.
None.
Wow.
None.
Wow. I wonder how many Jehovah's Witnesses know that.
They don't.
Yeah.
They're like me. They think that everything they believe is Bible based. Every single doctrine they believe is Bible based.
You don't question it.
You don't question it.
Wow.
I was so shocked to realize that there were so many things that I would have sworn blind were based on the Bible that weren't even in a single scripture.
Yeah. Wow.
It was a real eye opener reading the Bible for the first time, just reading it as a book.
Yeah.
Without having any biases or any kind of,
Yeah.
Yeah. So what do you think about this millennial reign teaching?
Oh, man.
What do you rate it on the crazometer?
On the crazometer. Oh, boy.
How crazy is it?
I'd give it a 7 because from a surface perspective, it's not crazy. But if you really ask the questions and look into it again, so like martyrs will be resurrected, but it has a lot more to it. And again, I think it's like you said, they painted themselves into a corner because not everything's black and white. People are going to start looking at those gray areas and going, here's a question. And then being like, oh, well, never thought about that. Shoot, well, we got to think of something. Like, what do we say to the people who want to know that and want to know that? Or, yeah. It's definitely crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. How crazy do you think the religion is in general?
It's definitely, okay, I say this not knowing a lot about different religions. Because, really, I only know a little bit about the Jewish religion. I know a little bit about the Catholic. Well, I know a lot about the Catholic. I know a lot about Baptists. I know a little bit about Mormonism. And now I know a little bit about Jehovah's Witness. But other than other religions that are more like extreme, I don't know anything about. So I can't judge based on those type of religions where people will suicide themselves for the religion and stuff like that. So, taking that into account, it's definitely the craziest religion that I've ever experienced or heard about, had firsthand experience with. Yeah. And I know Mormons probably come in a close behind that, and
there's always this thing between ex-Mos and ex-JWs about who had the craziest religion.
I'm sure if I heard all this stuff about Mormonism, because I've heard a lot of it from your people that you are friends with, but it's just a way to manipulate people into, being a part of a group that serves their purpose, serves a higher body's purpose. And I don't mean a higher body as in spiritual or God. I mean a higher body as in man.
Yeah.
Like 60-plus-year-old men, or now 50-plus-year-old men or whatever, who want to control stuff. But that's just the world in general. That's the world in general. All of our politicians, all of our, most of them are old men, old white men, who think they need to have the power and have the say-so over everybody. And they're going to get a wake-up call pretty soon because that's just not how the world works anymore. Those religions were established in very, very different times. The Bible was written in very, very different times. And as much as they try to conform and change to the changing times, it's not going to be enough.
No.
It's not going to be enough. And I can see it already, and I don't even pay attention to it as much as you do, but I see it already with the scrambling, like trying to get younger members in and trying to get, do all this stuff. And it's just the more people are awake, I think the more things are going to keep changing to where big changes are going to happen. And not just with religion. I mean, just in politics, like the world in general, because people can't have the control that they used to have. People can't have the control over groups of people that they used to have. People need to be individuals. People need to thrive on their own and be able to make their own decisions. And without religion, stepping in, without politics stepping in, just do what's right. Like, be a good human being. If you're an atheist, you don't have that much time left. Make the most of it. If you are religious, make the most of the time that you have, or just be a good human. But I feel like people get lost in that because they're so focused on what the group says and what the group wants that they lose focus on what is really good, though. Is it obeying rules that kind of walk the line of whether we're doing the right thing and whether this is nice? Or is it just taking a step back off the line and going, you know what? Let's just be good people. Let's just be good people to each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think you're absolutely right. I think the younger generations will be the end of these kind. I mean, I think religion is a byproduct of the human condition.
Yeah.
I think there will always be religions.
Yeah, I agree.
But not necessarily always theistic religions.
Yeah.
But there will always be groups or ideologies that people devote themselves to in a religious way.
Yeah.
Whether those things are based around the belief in a God or not.
Yeah.
So I think that religion is here to stay.
Yeah. Oh, I agree. Because for a majority of people, the mind can't handle a non-existence.
Yeah.
They have to believe in something, whether that's a God or whether that's, reincarnation or something, or the spiritual afterlife. The fear of non-existence is so tremendous to people. So they hold on to that religion. They hold on to that belief that they have, because if they don't have that, I remember you having a conversation with one of my friends, before, and, him being a Christian and you not, and you guys weren't arguing, but you were having a really good talk about, well, then what's it all for? What's it all for? Because his mind couldn't see that even if you don't have religion, even if you don't have a God or an afterlife, it doesn't mean that your life is worthless.
Yeah.
But because that's so terrifying to let go of, the thought that you just won't exist and it was all for nothing, people can't handle that. So there will always be some sort of hope.
Yeah.
People need that hope to hang on to.
Yeah. But 100% agree. But in terms of the kind of religions we're talking about, like Jehovah's Witnesses, the high control, the high control, oppressive kind of religions, I don't think that they are necessarily here to stay in the same way that religion as a concept is.
Yeah, agreed.
And I think one of the biggest reasons is because of young people. Young people just aren't into that.
Yeah.
Young people are themselves.
Yeah.
They think critically. They've grown up with the internet. They have access to information. They're used to questioning authority. It's not a big deal to them to question authority, to say why. That's part of the course for them. And high control religions can't thrive in that kind of environment. They just can't.
Yeah.
So thank you so much.
Thank you.
I really enjoyed this conversation.
Yeah, me too.
For our listeners, I really, really hope that it was coherent and flowing because we are both ever so slightly inebriated.
We did well.
I think we did well. Yeah, considering the copious amounts of peanut butter whiskey that we consumed beforehand.
It gave us a clearer head in mind.
Yeah. It was a verbal lubricant.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I'm going to have to use that. That is perfect.
Okay. So thanks again. I really love having you on the podcast.
Welcome, I love talking with you.
Oh,
You're the best.
Thank you. You're the best. And thank you, viewers, for tuning in. If you haven't already done so, please subscribe to the podcast and also rate it, as that helps the algorithm to get it in front of as many listeners as possible. And also please engage by giving it a like and a comment if you're listening on YouTube, or a rating on your favorite podcasting app. Thanks again for listening. I hope you have a great week.